All right, we'll kick it off.
How do you feel about taking over the play calling duties, and what do you feel you can bring to the table? What kind of stamp do you want to put on it?
Yeah, I really think mentality here from the beginning was like whatever is asked of me last year, this year, whatever the organization is going to ask of me, want to do that, my fullest capabilities. Excited about the opportunity, certainly, but try not to think of it in those terms. Like we have a job to do as a staff, myself, players included, like focus really on having a great week of preparation, making sure that we're putting our best foot forward, using the bye week to improve some areas where we really need to improve on, and ultimately then call a good game on Sunday.
Obviously, on Sunday it your role and stuff changes, but from Monday through Saturday, how much does that change what you have to do and kind of what's asked of you?
Yeah, I think we're fortunate to have a really good staff that you can collaborate with, lean on. Obviously, Kevin this week's been great. The rest of the staff's been great. Bloom and CO and some of the guys that you lean on throughout the week. Your job changes a little bit, right? Like you're having final stamp power on the game plan and where you see things falling and what's going to make it to Sunday. So that certainly changes, but the collaborative nature of it does not. Ultimately, you're making the final decision, which, like I said, changes things a bit, but process goes on as normal outside of that final part.
What was the conclusion you drew after the bye week about the passing game?
Yeah. Look, there's a lot of areas there we need to improve. And the passing game, like we've said from the jump, takes all 11. Certainly we want to stress defenses in probably some ways that we have not yet been able to or not able to connect on. Feature the guys that we can lean on and make our quarterback feel comfortable. So, the bye weeks are always great. We needed the reset to kind of look at things, make sure that we're doing the best things for our players, best things for our quarterbacks, and feel like we have a good plan moving forward.
The biggest things you learned when you were calling plays at Notre Dame and Alabama, and do you think calling them in the NFL will be any different?
Look, you learn every time you call plays, right? I started calling plays the last game of the season in 2019. Had handful of years there in a row called them in big games, called them in games people didn't watch, everywhere in between. Worked for two head coaches that are pretty intense on game day, so obviously you learn how to block out some noise, some friendly fire there. But I think you get into a groove, you get into a comfort level. So much of it is about learning your own team, learning your own quarterback. Fortunate for me, I've been able to be here, sit with Dylan, be with the offense. I know kind of what helps him, what makes him click. I think, got a good feel for our personnel here. That's so important when it comes to calling games. And then, you get into a rhythm throughout the game of figuring out what from the plan works, what you need to adjust, what they're doing to try to take some things away. And then you're just looking to build counters and things that can complement what you've already tried to set up. But I think every time you call a game, you learn. Every time even for me in the role I've been in, like you learn as you're putting yourself in the shoes to call a game again, as you're listening and observing and helping. I think those were critical moments for me to move forward on. So for like the NFL part, I think these last couple of years, just being in the position I've been and seeing it firsthand, I don't have a whole lot of concern there.
Tommy, the fact that you guys have so many young, skilled players on offense and you have this experience calling plays in college and these college concepts, like how much of an impact is that, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if it is. I really look at it as calling a game, and like you're going to shape it to who you have. I think we have a good blend of young and vets right now, and we got to get the most out of them. I wouldn't say like solely because I called games in college it gives me a leg up. I think calling games gives you a perspective of how you utilize your personnel and how you utilize putting guys in the right spots. Certainly, like you see a lot of things from college transfer into the NFL as of late. You watch Denver play; they have a lot of stuff there that makes their quarterback comfortable. So I think finding the right blend of, again, maximizing your personnel and who you have is important.
New England game, you mentioned that you got to make Gabriel comfortable.
Yep.
And then he went out and did what he did. He only threw 8 balls to receivers.
Yeah.
How do you make him comfortable?
Yeah, we got to
put receivers.
We got to put the receivers in the right spots. We got to ask them to do the right things. We got to make sure that we're giving them the looks during the week. Certainly they did some things there to take some looks away, but getting him to progress and feel confident in those things. And again, it's all that work is done throughout the week. And then when a team's doing something that's going to take it away, you got to have counters and answers for that.
Beers in the booth?
I will, yep.
Why do you like to do it like that?
It's a great vantage point to be able to call the game. It's a great environment to be able to call a game, and it's where my comfort's been. I've called games from the field. I prefer to call them from the booth as time's progressed on, but want to keep the same rhythm that we have.
I feel like Dylan or whoever's at quarterback then will have Bill Musgrave right there as like boots on the ground right next to him.
Yeah, we've had a good throughout the entire year plan on how to communicate from the box down through Bill through the phone. So there's plenty of ways to get that across.
And you talked about getting the most out of stuff. Jerry, obviously, it's been a tough first eight games. How do you balance trying to get him involved, especially early in the game, with not trying to force the game plan to one player or something like that?
Yeah, I think you got to be multiple in what you do, so that way you can't just let them hone in and take something away. But that's a good perspective, right? Like there's a balance between, hey, feature these guys, get them easy touches, also understand that could happen in the rhythm of the game. But look, we're better when our best players are playing well. We're better when our best players are touching the ball. So I think that's an area of focus for every team, not just us. And so our job as coaches is to find ways to not allow them to take that away.
Was comfortable out of the shotgun at Oregon. Gabriel was comfortable playing mostly shotgun at Oregon. You think you need to go to that to make him more comfortable?
I think there's a lot of things we can do to make him comfortable. I think there's great communication between Dylan and the staff on what gets him to that point. I think just the bye week gives some perspective. Certainly we want to play better. I'll say this, like I came to Cleveland to work for Kevin. That's really the reason I took this job 2 years ago. Like think the world of him, still think the world of him. Really like fortunate for the support he's given me over the last week, the support he's had for me over the last couple of years. Like I wanted to come to Cleveland to work for Kevin. I think the timing of it, you have a bye week, you have some time to step away and look at things through a different perspective and want to create a spark for the offense. And, again, like how I feel is whatever they want me to do, whatever's asking me to help us win games, that's what I want to do at the highest level. So, again, working really collaboratively with Kev and really appreciate, that part of it. So it's his decision and, want to make the most of it.
Yesterday that you will have final say and latitude over most things, and he really wants you to be able to put your stamp on this. But also when it comes to maybe whether or not to go for it on fourth down, he's going to retain some of that. How do you feel about how that all
he's the head coach. Every head coach makes the decisions on game day management, right? It's your job to call the play when the situations come up. It's their job head coach's job to make sure that they're putting the team in the best position.
Receiving core more heavily involved than they've been in recent weeks, and then also too, how much of maybe the inconsistency involvement do you think has led to some of the drop passes that we've seen?
Yeah, I think just maximizing what they do really well, not allowing a team to kind of bear down on certain things and make sure you have enough multiplicity there to move guys around, put them in the right spots. And then, I think you want to get guys into a rhythm. The more success they have, the more confident they play. You get them into a rhythm, you're going to see better play, I think, and higher percentage of things going the right way. So it's our job, again, as coaches to build that in.
In Gabriel's 4 starts, do you think defenses are trying to hem him into the pocket, to keep him in the pocket and make it more difficult for him?
Yeah, I think every defense you play has certain rush patterns where they try to take away what a quarterback's comfortable with. You see a lot of times with right-handers, they try to use a flush rush, get them out to the right, and then they'll loop somebody and show up as a quarterback tries to get out to their right. You see guys who maybe retreat in the pocket, they want to push the inside. So I think, defensive coordinators do a good job of studying quarterbacks' habits, and we got to make sure that we're doing enough in our protection scheme to allow him to have different answers.
But just from aesthetics, how it looks, because it's the same playbook, because it's still collaborative, do you think just watching the game, the offense and how it operates is going to look much different than it did the first 8 weeks?
I'll ask you next week, I guess. I would think every play caller is going to have a different feel, a different spin on things. They're going to have things that they value, things that they want to get to. Kevin and I are not the same person, although, to your point, we have enough in our offense to make it look different in spots. We have enough depth in what we're asking those guys to do to make it look different. But I think some of the core principles continue on. We just have to do them at a higher level.
Obviously, fans aren't familiar with the Tommy Rees offense. So without giving anything away,
Ohio State country, yeah.
What do you think that they can expect from?
I'm not going to put any labels on it. We want to go out there and play sound football, put our players in the right spots, and have success. Like, look, we got to score points. We got to stay on the offense. To sit here and say a bunch of stuff that it's going to look like, we want to maximize the guys we have, and that's looked different. The first year I called plays at Notre Dame looks different than when I was at Alabama. It's just you're trying to maximize the guys you have on the roster.
It's been a trying year for the offensive line in general, but do you feel it's stabilized now?
Feels like that, right? I mean, you get a couple weeks here being healthy. You feel good about where those guys are at, where the tackles are at. So, I think as the year goes on, the more continuity you can have up front, the better off you are in pass pro, the better off you are in combination in the run game, all of those things.
Serving as the tight ends coach last year, do you have some
favoritism?
No. Affinity for tight ends? Do you think that you might, just let the tight ends cook a little bit more?
I don't know about that. Yeah.
You mentioned working for Brian, then Nick, and now Kevin. As a coordinator, maybe a play caller, where do you feel like you've evolved or maybe changed throughout everything?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think when you go into it as a coordinator, I was 27 when I got that job at Notre Dame, and you have an idea of what you want your offense to look like, and you try to shape it. And I think you learn pretty quickly it's really not about what you want it to be. It's about what your players can do and what puts them in a position to have success. So certainly learned that young in the career. And then I think with, Coach Saban in Alabama, you learn how to have compliments, how to have counters in that league. At that level, like you better have that stuff built in or you can get exposed pretty quick. And then I think you learn the ability to anticipate and have some foresight into what teams are going to try to do to stop you and then have a great plan there. I will say with Nick as well, like you better have a core belief on what your guys can execute at a really high level and continue to ask him to do that, which like he challenged you to be simple and execute those things at a really high level. And I think, again, you have all these ideas of what you want to be. It's important to remember, put your players in a position to execute the same thing over and over again, and they can be pretty good at that. And definitely learned that throughout that year. And, I've had great mentors, great people to be surrounded by my entire coaching career. And certainly along the way, they shape how you call plays, shape how you coach and coordinate.
How do you know, how does a coach you're maybe working under know when you're ready for that elevation to become a play caller or an offensive coordinator? Is it more of a just trial by fire?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had the opportunity to do it from the other side. You probably don't. You just put in the work and you try to put your players in the right spots. The first game I called was a bowl game, at the end of a year, and you work towards it. You try to start visualizing it and anticipating it. But, at some point you got to go out there and do it. And, you rep it, you practice it, you work exercises throughout the week to put yourself in that spot. And then you lean on the people around you and you have confidence in what you're doing. Cool. Thanks, guys. What's up? Good.
Group or refresh or change things up?
I went back to Indy and saw my son play football all weekend, so that was good. No, it was good week to just reset, get back on track, and refocus for the next nine weeks.
At the New England game, you tried 2 onside kicks there and was successful on the second one, but you started the first one with the Horkaz.
Yep.
So you obviously got a few options.
Yeah, we have a few options. Good execution on the second one with the kick, and got the high hop there, and Gage was in a good spot. So give our offense another opportunity with the ball.
But when you look back at the first games, like, what are your biggest takeaways about your unit, and I guess the areas of improvement you're trying to make the most in the second half?
Yeah, we started slow. Just a couple mishaps early. I felt like we got back on track about midway through the first half of the year. Definitely missed some opportunities in the return game, both on KOR and punt return. So emphasis on that moving forward. With also priority in coverage. I mean, that's always going to be a huge thing for us.
Was that for you guys? He played a lot of special team snaps for you.
I'm sorry?
Joe trying.
Oh, yeah, Joe.
Played
Yeah.
a lot of special team
Yeah.
snaps for you, so was that kind of a...
Yeah, we've really gotten contributions from a number of different areas. We have a decent amount of D linemen that are playing for us. That don't have a ton of, I would say, core type guys. So I feel like we're pulling from different parts of the team. So it's been a good thing for the D line to give us some contributions there.
What day do you practice onside kicks?
What day of the week? We talk through it throughout the week. We usually typically hit them on Friday. There's times where we'll hit them on Thursday as well. Friday is when I usually do I hit a lot of situational type things in my meeting. So
You never know whether it's in a game plan or not, so you practice them anyway.
yeah, we practice our onside kick, and we practice our hands unit every week.
Just halfway through the year for Andre, and how you've kind of seen him come along and obviously work through some of the misses and struggles and things like that he's had too.
Yeah, and like I said, I feel like early in the season, first time out there, obviously missed a couple kicks against Cincy, which were critical, but then got back on track. Had a miss at Detroit on a deep kick, missed a kick at New England, which would have been a big one, but I feel like he's been really consistent in his practice reps. I feel like he's in a good spot, moving forward.
Did you know Tommy before he got here last year?
No, I did not. I knew who Tommy was, but I did not know him.
Obviously, Kevin made the change in play color this week. Do you feel that throughout the coaching staff? How do you react to something like that?
Not really. I haven't really felt anything different at all. I always tell Tommy I feel like he's younger than me. I want to say almost 10 years younger than me. I always feel like he's my age because we're always talking and chopping it up and stuff. So, he's a great football coach. He's got a great mind, very smart. I think he's been really good for our staff and for our team.
That though obviously doesn't impact you directly, that there's a change in play caller, but what does it say about just Kevin from a leadership standpoint that he's willing to pass that off? What message does that send to you guys as a coaching staff, to the team, that he's willing to hand that off just to sort of try to find a way to get this offense moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I couldn't say enough good things about Kev. I think he's done a great job with the messaging to our football team, keeping our team connected. We obviously have a lot of faith in him to be able to lead this building. And then obviously to be able to hand it off to Tommy. You don't do that unless you trust the guy that you're giving that to. So I think Tommy's, earned that opportunity. So I think Kevin definitely trusts him.
The onside kick, but one last question.
Yeah.
Given the changes in the rules and having to declare,
Yeah.
how much of an onside kick now has become luck?
Become luck? Yeah, I think practice execution. You got to be able to. You have to hit a good kick. Yet the formation is going to dictate, how they are aligned to your personnel. People want to have other avenues and things like that to be able to change the play. I always feel like you shouldn't, if you're losing and trailing in the game, you shouldn't have an opportunity to get the ball back. Like why should we give a higher percentage of a recovery to a team that's losing? So to me, like if you're losing in the game, you should have did more earlier in the game to not put yourself in that spot.
Kicks, since it seems like onside kick day. How much? Because there was a play.
Is this national onside kick day?
Well, we do have National Tight Ends Day, so.
Off a bye week. Give us a break.
Well, and there was a play in Cincinnati, Chicago on Sunday where the recovering team went up 2 yards and it bounced off the guy's foot. How much of that is a good teaching tool and stuff that let it go the 10 yards, don't advance to try to get it?
Yeah, I think depending on how you're coaching the play is how those guys are how they're gonna react and how they're gonna play it. There's different ways to be able to execute the recovery. There's different alignments. There's different positions that factor. Who are the ball handlers? Who are you telling to recover the ball? Do you have one guy recovering the ball? Is everyone an option? So, not really trying to give too much away, but it just depends on how you're coaching those players to do it. But ideally, you don't want to. If you're going to block, you don't want to contact the ball before it gets the return or before it gets to 10 yards.
And then because even on returns and stuff, if you're going down and it bounces off you, it's still a live ball anyway, too.
Correct. Yeah.
Corley, he returned some kicks last game for you, right? Like, what have you seen him overall on your unit end as a returner?
He's developing. He's learning. I think that he'll continue to improve the more opportunities he gets to touch the ball, both in practice and in games. We cleaned up some things from the New England game that I think that we can be better in. So, but I like the kid, hard worker, good with the ball in his hands. He almost is built like a running back. So we like that about him.
Special teams coach who's against onside kicks.
I'm not against onside kicks, but I just don't think that we need to gimmick the game up and have a 4th and 15 offensive play to try to get the ball back or something like that.
That's radical.
Yeah.
You don't understand why.
I mean,
a team losing should have a chance to come back.
Look, it's a lower percentage recovery rate because I would say they're trying to keep the play safe and eliminate the run up to the kick line. So that's why, now the one thing that they did do this year is now you're allowed to have your front foot on the 35-yard line, whereas in the past you would have to have it on the 34. Hasn't made that much of a difference, but I'm in favor of the onside kick. But if you're going to try to sustain the same formation and not have overloaded formations and run-ups to the line to be able to they want to be able to keep the play safe. That's the way. I mean, you're trying to eliminate speed over space. That's why the kickoff play is what it is.
Speaking of safety, now at the midpoint of this season, have you been surprised with kick return rates and everything, or what's been your view of the modified rule?
No, I mean, I told you guys back in the spring that it's pretty much where I thought it was going to be. I thought it'd be about 85%. It's at just under 80, I think, 79%. I read that the injury rates are about the same as a normal play, so the plays proved to be a safe play. I think you'll still start to see evolvement of the play as the years go on. I think there's ways to improve it, obviously. So I think they'll continue to tweak the play. So, cool. Thanks.